Kakarot doesn't exist. I'm sorry, you read the title of the video. I just had to rip the band-aid off. You know what's happening here. Because no matter what name you call the guy, he is still Goku at the end of the day. You see, a lot of people will refer to moments in the story where Goku acts a bit differently to say that he's entered Kakarot mode, whatever the hell that means. Or even worse, they'll say something like, if he regains his memories of his past childhood as a Saiyan, whatever he remembers from that, he will then turn into Kakarot, whatever that means. But these kind of have a fundamental misunderstanding of a lot of things, and they lead to a lot of misconceptions about the story of Dragon Ball, and it's kind of interesting to me to think about them. Like, listen, we don't have to take this too seriously, but I think it's a good jumping off point to talk about Goku as a character and the importance of his Saiyan heritage and his biology towards him as a character. So let's get into that. First, I'd like to cover some examples of Kakarot Mode, not Goku regaining his memories. We'll talk about that later. Kakarot Mode is more of a vibe check. It's more of a feeling than it is a real discernible thing. I think two really key examples, and they're kind of similar in what they are, is how Goku acts when Krillin is killed by Tambourine, and he goes after him, and he's very angry, his hair's standing up, and he's acting erratic, emotional, and very, very brutal. And also Goku when he first turns into a Super Saiyan, where he starts having different shaped speech bubbles than he's ever had. He starts speaking in a different way in Japanese than he has throughout the entire series. He becomes a bit of a different character due to the rage and emotion and the overwhelming feeling that we know Super Saiyan causes on a Saiyan, especially when it isn't mastered. And of course, hey, believe it or not, the first time he uses Super Saiyan, that isn't mastered. So people point to these moments where Goku is not the bubbly, good-hearted, nice character that we usually know to say that this is Goku entering Kakarot mode. This is his Saiyan self taking over the control of his body and really being the driving force behind what he's doing. But is that a valid way we should discuss these scenes? Now, don't get me wrong. Kakarot mode is a funny and good shorthand to have when Goku is acting particularly brutal in things like the Dragon Ball Z movies, where that guy is a different animal. And that's a different circumstance as well. You see, the Dragon Ball Z movies are non-canon. I think most of us are aware of this at this point. And because of that, they sort of have to be self-contained, right? They have to have a beginning and an end. There can't be a good guy redemption at the end of a Dragon Ball Z movie because where is that guy in the main story? You kind of want him to be a villain that you just kill off, and that means Goku is more brutal than he ever is in the main series because he has to be. It necessitates it. What's funny is this has a side effect because sometimes the villains have sequel movies, as we all know, like Cooler or Broly, and then they have to come up with these contrived ways that these characters get their sequel movies because they were supposed to be killed by Kakarot mode, you know what I mean? Anyway, I think for that, it's fine. And again, as a funny meme thing, Kakarot mode is pretty chill with me. But the issue is when people start using it to actually be an understanding or a discussion of Goku as a character. Like, let's look at the examples that I gave. Both times, Goku's best friend had just been murdered in cold blood right in front of him. Well, he found Krillin's dead body in original Dragon Ball, but you get what I mean. He had just experienced loss on a level that he can't even begin to comprehend, and it happened so directly in front of him that his rage starts to show. I mean, something similar even happens in the Saiyan saga when he arrives at the battlefield and realizes that basically everyone has died except for 2 people, and so he takes it out on Nappa. These moments are not Kakarot mode, because Kakarot mode almost implies that Goku's Saiyan genetics, his genes, his biology is driving him to do something that is bad, to do something that is what the Saiyans would do. That is brutal, it's evil, it's malicious, it's for the sake of conquering, of being the strongest on the battlefield, right? But when in reality, these scenes are ultimately, if a bit harsh, relatively heroic. They're relatively selfless. Goku blatantly puts himself in danger against Tambourine. He, for all intents and purposes, should have died during that conflict. He is lucky to have survived and then gotten his chance to kill Tambourine later on when he was a bit more level-headed. In the Saiyan saga, Goku has just arrived at the battlefield too late, something that was avoidable if King Kai had just been a bit more aware of what was going on and understood that he had to send Goku home a bit earlier. If that had happened, Goku could have prevented all the death and destruction that occurred on Earth that day. And because it didn't happen, Goku is left to face the consequences of his own inadequacies, his own inability to have prevented something that he otherwise feels like he could have. So he's taking out this emotional trauma, but it's entirely based on his feelings as an Earthling, his feelings as a human, his feelings as a person who has friendships, connections, not because of some grand fight that he's looking forward to. That fight is the next guy. But the guy in front of him right now, Nappa, the guy who killed all of these comrades, these friends, these allies, he's being taken down in this brutal way, actually strictly because Goku doesn't feel very Saiyan-like in that moment. Of course, then we get to the Frieza saga, where I think is the best argument for a Kakarot mode ever happening. Because Goku is supposed to be, narratively, combining his understanding of his own Saiyan heritage and his acceptance of being a Saiyan with his own understanding of who he is as an Earthling, this pure heart. This is why he has that kind of out-of-character speech, even in the original, alright, I'm not even talking about the Funimation one. The out-of-character speech that he does, where he talks about how I am pure-hearted, I was awakened by rage, I am the Super Saiyan Son Goku, because he is directly telling you that he was birthed by the fact that he is both a Saiyan and an Earthling. So that rage is coming from both sides of him as a being. But this is a combination of both, not an awakening of some deeper mode that he didn't have within him. Like I said, we kind of saw basically the same thing happen with the fight against Tambourine, but Tambourine didn't lead to Goku becoming a Super Saiyan. So that's the only difference. So I do think boiling any of these scenes down to like Goku's Saiyan genetics made him go big, brutal, evil Saiyan warrior mode is kind of a simplification and sometimes a complete misunderstanding of what these scenes actually are and why they are important to Goku as a character. It gets even worse when you consider the modern interpretation of Saiyans and Goku's like retconned origin, where the Saiyans weren't really that bad of people. Like, obviously the vast majority of Saiyans were terrible. Like, don't get me wrong, they were genocide space pirates, all right? They are not good people. But they weren't as bad as they were previously portrayed, specifically in the case of Bardock and Guinea. Now, Bardock and Guinea are Goku's parents at the end of the day, so anything that happens to their story does feel like it directly impacts Goku in some regard. But more importantly than anything, it just shows that Saiyans had the capacity to not be brutal, the capacity to do good. Guinea is a bit soft, though we don't see directly her saving anyone, but Bardock directly saves 4 characters in the modern continuity, and because of that, it's kind of hard to dismiss him as like a one-off or something that's not relevant to the conversation, because he's showing the signs of being a good person, or the potential to be a good person, I guess, while still being in the circumstances where it's heavily beneficial for him to be an absolutely awful person. Like, there are moments he could have died because he's doing good acts in the granola arc. Now, if you want to say that doesn't prove or show anything, I 100% understand that. This is all interpretation at the end of the day, because the material has been so shown to us that now we actually have to interpret past events and how they connect to each other, because we were shown in more detail those past events, and obviously the retcons that came along with them. So importantly here, I'd like to focus on Baby Goku. Now, Baby Goku, who we actually see in Jaco the Galactic Patrolman's final chapter, is a rough and rowdy baby that's like beating up Grandpa Gohan. He's got like scuff marks all over him and everything, and he's got a bit of an appetite, all right? That's basically how Goku was described to Roshi by Grandpa Gohan, so that fits with the old continuity. But the issue is, we also see how Goku was sent to Earth by Bardock and Guinea. He's in the pod, but he's not being temperamental. He's not slamming his fists to try and get out. He's not trying to bash his way out. He's not being this little caged animal, which is kind of how he was originally sort of described. He was kind of an animal that Grandpa Gohan found that kind of just looked like a person, but had a tail, and he could just sort of fling his fists and would go crazy. Because originally, there really was no nuance to what Saiyans were besides Goku. So now that there is nuance to what Saiyans are, and we see that Goku was able to control his anger and emotions when Bardock and Guinea are with him, it makes it all the more plausible that the only reason Goku was a bad baby on Earth to begin with Grandpa Gohan is because he misses his parents. I mean, he seems upset when they're sending him away. He doesn't seem very happy about it. So once he gets to Earth and there's no mom and dad and now there's this old guy in the cabin, well, I'm not happy about it. And now he starts throwing hands. So instead of it being this situation where Goku was genetically a Saiyan and predisposed to doing violent acts and conquering worlds and killing people, he's actually just throwing a fit because he misses his parents. Now, again, this is an interpretation. If you want to say you're a moron, Carthu, go ahead. I already know. But I want that interpretation to be out there because I think it's plausible. Not that I necessarily think it's true, but it is plausible. And because of that, I don't think there's some genetic predisposed thing about Goku that would allow him to enter a so-called Kakarot mode. Because the Saiyans are evil by their own history. They're evil because of their leadership. They're evil because that's how their society framed themselves. They pointed themselves in that direction. That's the whole point of Toriyama talking about Yamoshi, is the fact that the Saiyans that were good lost and the Saiyans that were evil won. And so the Saiyans that were evil shaped society. And then eventually King Vegeta happens. And eventually King Cold happens. And then eventually Frieza happens. And then we get the whole structure of what we currently understand them to be, evil space pirates. Okay, now we can get to the worst version. Goku somehow returning to Kakarot, again, whatever that means, because he hits his head again or regains his memory somehow, and everything reverts to this brutal Saiyan self that Goku has long since forgotten because of a head injury. You've probably even heard about this idea before because it was like a very popular fan idea or fan theory. It's ended up in probably countless fan mangas at this point, and it's because just the idea that Goku is only good because he hit his head, which is not ever what the story has ever said, but the idea that people perceive that Goku's only good because he hit his head as a baby, now if we undo that, he would become evil and brutal and Saiyan-like, is a very popular point of fan discussion that I don't think really makes any sense because there's just a lot of ways you could just dismantle this argument. Let me start with the obvious one. Now, I've already been talking about the Dragon Ball Super manga. I'm assuming you all are chill here with the Dragon Ball Super manga. We're all nerds about this series in this place, I think. And maybe some of you are coming in to understand some stuff that you maybe never heard before, so maybe you don't care about spoilers, but just in case you do, minor spoilers, major, I don't know, it depends what you think for the Granola arc of the Dragon Ball Super manga. In the Dragon Ball Super manga, Goku gets his memories back via a scouter that Bardock left on planet Cereal. Do you know what notably doesn't happen here? Goku doesn't become Kakarot. Goku doesn't suddenly become like brutal and Saiyan and start, killing Minato and eating people and, causing genocide or whatever. He's just sort of him still, which of course he would be. I mean, he's him. He's the same guy. Nothing has changed. He's regained memories, but just put into your brain the context of those memories. Obviously, that alone debunks the point, but let's assume that for some reason you still don't believe that it hasn't changed him. He did learn a lesson from these memories, don't get me wrong. He expressly says he learned some sort of lesson from these memories, but that's not really the point of this video, so I don't want to discuss it too deeply. The main thing with these memories is that it doesn't fundamentally change him. And that's because, let's just ratio this out real quick. Goku was in his incubator for up to 3 years. The Dragon Ball Minus manga chapter specifically says 3 years, but we don't know if that is still considered canon because Dragon Ball Super Broly, which had Toriyama write the script, did not include the line about 3 years, maybe because Toriyama was told or realized that Goku being 3 years old at that point is kind of weird and it messes with the timeline. So whatever Goku's age is, he was in the incubator for no more than 3 years. That's 3 years worth of memories. It's a lot of memories, especially because Saiyan babies seem to have great memories for some reason. I don't know why, they are just built like that. But what about his memories on Earth, with his friends, with his family, with everyone he loves and cares about? Well, that would be over 40 years of memories. Yeah, no, this isn't close. Of course, Goku with over 40 years of memories, regaining a few memories from when he was an infant in his house, in an incubator, seeing his family be nice to each other, by the way, wouldn't really change and become brutal and evil all of a sudden, because there's no Kakarot in there that isn't Goku. Goku is Kakarot. Kakarot is Goku, ultimately. I think a really easy way to understand this is Vegeta. He had 3 decades of being an evil piece of shit. And then, when he wanted to be evil again, after having some form of redemption and change of heart and growth as a character, he couldn't do it. The 2 times he's tried. In the first time was Majin Vegeta, and Goku calls him out for it. Despite Vegeta killing some innocents in the stand, I know, it's bad, do not get me wrong, I'm not downplaying that, he couldn't truly become evil. He didn't kill his wife and the other friends he's made in the 7 years he's spent on Earth since Future Trunks died, and that showed him he had a f***ing heart. He is a different guy at this point. Goku calls him out. You do care. You cannot fully become evil again because it's not in you. You are not that guy anymore. Then in the Granola arc again, Vegeta tries to become callous and uncaring in his fight against Granola, but he directly says he couldn't be that person again. He has changed too much. He may have been misunderstanding what Beerus was actually trying to teach him, but despite that, he was trying to do something in terms of becoming a more evil and brutal Saiyan again, and he couldn't do it. So compare that to Goku, who gets a few years of his memories back, isn't trying to be evil, and why would we assume that these memories would even change him? It just doesn't even make sense when you think about it rationally in the framework of the story. You don't even need the Granola arc in Dragon Ball Super for this at all. You could literally just read the original manga and find out that Vegeta failed to become evil again when he tried to, so Goku, who has a pure heart, regaining some memories when not trying to be evil, wouldn't become evil. It's a pretty basic concept if you ask me. But here's the biggest reason I wanted to make this video, and it's probably going to be the shortest section, unfortunately, because it doesn't need much saying. Once I say it, you'll understand. The final thing about Kakarot and Goku giving into his Saiyan genes and brutality that I want to talk about is that when Goku gives into his Saiyan genes or Saiyan desires, the story directly tells us. You could say Kakarot Mode happens a few times in Dragon Ball Z, and you would be 100% correct because Akira Toriyama wrote it down on the page for you. But it's never about brutality. It's never about evil. It's never about becoming what the Saiyans were on planet Vegeta or in Frieza's empire. It's about Goku's battle lust, his excitement, his desire to keep fighting, to keep going, to seek a stronger opponent, to test himself in the arena. These are the moments where Goku is expressly stated to give into his Saiyan desires. But to a lot of people, you would call that the most Goku aspect of his character. And that's because the answer to this whole video was right in front of you the whole time. Because Vegeta has been saying it since he met the guy. Kakarot is Goku. And no matter what name you call the guy, that will never, ever change. But that's all I have to say. Have a good one.